the COD Vanguard beta. It was extended quite a bit, so hopefully you had a chance to try it out this past weekend. I grinded to level 30, and overall, I enjoyed the beta, contrary to what you may have read on the internet. I thought the gunplay felt great. I thought the maps felt good. Gameplay as a whole got a positive reaction out of me. With that said though, there are several minor issues I had with the beta that I want to share, as well as several things I loved about the beta, and I have a few what I'm calling major concerns with some core gameplay mechanics that I feel need to be addressed by launch to drastically improve this game. So that's exactly what I'll be discussing in this video. I got some Vanguard beta clips for you to watch, plus I have a small wish list of things I'd like to see added or changed at the end of this video. Let's start off with the minor issues I had with the beta. First thing here is the spawns in the beta. The spawn logic was about what I expected for a beta for Call of Duty. It was hard to predict where an enemy would spawn. You had people spawning on top of each other. But every COD has had spawn issues towards the beginning. It's not really a concern for me. I'm sure it will be improved by launch and then stable within a few weeks of launch. Another issue I had were a lot of graphical errors in this beta. You had flickering objects, unrendered textures, random flashing lights happening. Sledgehammer did come out and say they knew there'd be some issues tied to fire in the beta because of changes they've made, and we had a small portion of the game downloaded on our hard drives. So again, I'm confident this is something that'll be resolved by launch. The remaining three issues are gameplay decisions that I haven't had enough playtime to make a full judgment on. Some of these could have existing counters already that I just didn't get around to trying yet. For example, the Goliath. It's like an RCXD, but it's a field upgrade, and it's really annoying to die to. I think they should lower the health to make this thing easier to counter, or make the detonation longer so you have more of a chance to avoid it. Or like make the flak jacket perk counter, which could already be a counter for all I know. I didn't really get to play around with that perk that much in this beta, but just something that I thought was worth mentioning. Another thing I'm not really sure about are the Killstreak weapons in this game. We've had access to the Death Machine and the War Machine, and kills with these do not count towards Killstreaks. I don't believe they count towards a V2 rocket, but these Killstreak weapons will persist through death, and you'll have them in your inventory until you run out of ammo with these. They're essentially a third weapon you'll have at all times if you're good and can keep your kill streaks up. The Death Machine also has explosive rounds built into it, which is pretty rad. It's really fun to use, but I can see this being annoying, especially if you're going on a kill streak and I'm on the receiving end of a Death Machine. Last minor issue I had with the beta are the suppression and flinch attachments for your weapons. There are ammo magazine attachments and perks that can cause your enemy to flinch more or have more screen distortion when being shot at. When I encountered these in the beta, my first thought was I'm not sure I really want these in a Call of Duty game because it feels bad on the receiving end. But on the other hand, I haven't unlocked all the gear and perks and things that were in the game, and there could be counters for this for a while, I know. There could be better alternative attachments that will mitigate the amount of players using these perks for your weapons. But I am on the fence with these. I almost put this into the major concerns category. Obviously, I didn't follow through with that. I do think this is something that Sledgehammer should be aware of in studying the data for. That wraps up the minor issues. I do have the major concerns, but before we jump into those, I want to go over the things that I liked about the beta. And there's a handful of things I'm going to run through real quick. I want to reiterate that I really liked the gunplay. The time to kill felt like it was in a good place. It felt not too fast, not too slow. I wasn't getting beamed instantly like in Modern Warfare. It actually felt a lot like an older Call of Duty to me, just gameplay wise. Part of this is because of the maps. Again, I want to reiterate, I like the maps. The new destruction mechanic isn't revolutionary, but it is a nice addition to the game and adds some different gameplay options. It reminds me a lot of the Ghost dynamic map elements from years ago. Even like the Red Star map I find nice. It is a bigger map, but it plays like an older big map. It's a giant square. It's not like a long empty map like Satellite in Cold War or a Neapolis in Modern Warfare. Speaking of which, combat pacing is a great addition. I like being able to choose between the standard 6v6 Call of Duty experience to something a bit more intense to all-out warfare. And I hope this will prevent the devs from spreading themselves thin with map designs. They won't have to make face-off maps on top of 6v6 maps on top of ground war and fire team maps and so on and so on. I like that we're returning to the universal field upgrade system. I thought the perk balance was pretty solid. I'm so glad to see the return of the attack dog's kill streaks. Surprisingly, I like the Blindfire mechanics and the new mounting mechanics that allow you to move while you are mounted from side to side. They're pretty situational to use, especially Blindfire, but I like that they give you a defensive option when you're pinned in cover. It gives you a fighting chance rather than doing a last-ditch effort and trying to pull some Rambo shenanigans to kill an enemy. I was skeptical about this feature at first, but I think they implemented it fairly well. And lastly, on the like list, I like and don't like the expansive weapon customization. 10 attachments is pretty sweet, but it is a bit overwhelming. I do really like having 2 weapon perks on the weapons now. It's like the Modern Warfare weapon perk system, but with more options, and it alleviates some of the reliance on the class perks like Ghost and whatnot. With that said, weapon customization is one of my major concerns, believe it or not, albeit the lowest precedence on my major concerns list, but we are going to dive into the major issue section right now, starting with weapon customization because segues. So there's 2 issues I have with the 10 attachments. The first is when you start combining attachments, especially when you start unlocking those higher attachments that make some pretty significant changes, you can start making some pretty powerful builds. And the way things tend to work is there'll be like one meta setup that everyone will start to gravitate towards. And if a powerful weapon emerges and they want to rebalance it because time to kill is snowballing out of hand, it's going to be very challenging to balance weapons with so many variables happening, especially if you try to make a change across a whole weapon class. Now I have to hand it to Sledgehammer, there are more variances between attachments on different weapons, even within weapon classes, especially for what the barrels will change, but I really do foresee this being a hurdle for weapon balancing. My second issue having so many variables is things get very overwhelming, especially the way they're presenting stats and the whole UI of create a class. For example, you look at like the bar, you have attachments that modify accuracy and recoil control and recoil recovery and initial accuracy and recoil control. Plus you have barrel modifiers that say things like make this weapon highly accurate and controllable without any numbers until you expand more details. On top of that, stat changes are presented in a plus or minus a digit format rather than a percentage. It doesn't seem like a very accurate system. I got confused. My friend who hasn't played COD in a bit got confused. I'm worried that people will log in to Vanguard, they'll get overwhelmed from create class and then just write the game off and never revisit it, which isn't good for getting new players into the game and sustaining a player base. So please simplify the UI and the stats, streamline them, make it less clunky. I shouldn't need to be taking notes on what changes are happening to my gun when I am making a class. Alright, next concerning issue, which is a very major concern of mine, is the audio. Sledgehammer stated that they're aware of the audio and they're working on a fix of it, but I'm still really concerned about audio because it's so bad. The EQ of the audio sounds very muddy. The sounds are mixed very poorly. Overall, it just sounded bad. The in-game announcer is also very loud and overpowers all the other sounds. I didn't really notice how bad the sound was in-game, funnily enough, until I went back and edited some Vanguard gameplay. That's when I noticed how horrible the audio was. All I heard, and all you may hear while watching this video, is muffled gun sounds and the announcer yelling. There are no intricacies of the battlefield in the Vanguard mix. This needs to be a top priority from them, and they need to improve this tenfold for launch. Slow sprint to fire times are another major concern of mine. I've seen a clip of an M1 Garand taking like a whole second to actually fire after sprinting. The Vanguard sprint to fire times are alarmingly slow. Now SMGs, they feel great. Assault rifles can feel sluggish when you pile on attachments, and LMGs are as slow as snails. If you're sprinting and run into someone, there's like a 99% chance you're going to die. Now LMGs shouldn't be as fast as SMGs, but they shouldn't be as slow as they are currently. I think every weapon class needs to be reevaluated, maybe even speed up the SMGs even more and get things back in line with older Call of Duty games. Another major concern is weapon leveling. It was pretty slow in the beta. It's not fun to use a weapon forever and not be unlocking attachments at a quick rate, especially when there are dozens of weapons in the game at launch. Speed it up, that's all I gotta say about that. I also feel the need to mention visibility. Now, I personally thought visibility was fine in the beta. I didn't experience major issues. I have no complaints, but I'm including it as a concern because weekend 1 of the PlayStation beta had some obstructive effects like gas and smoke and muzzle flashes and some distortion that was removed for weekend 2. And Sledgehammer, you need to keep it like that. Do not go add that stuff back in after the fact. I'm concerned they may try to finagle it back in, and I want to be on record saying that that is a bad idea. I figure I could also mention the absence of factions really quick along with visibility. I've seen plenty of complaints that people can't tell who's an enemy and who's not an enemy because there aren't factions in this game. I haven't run into this issue myself, at least as of yet. I don't see how separate operators really changes much. It feels the same as like the Modern Warfare 2 to Black Ops 2 era to me. I personally think this is a pretty stupid thing to complain about, but hey, to each their own. And those are really all my complaints for the Vanguard beta. Now, are these alarming enough for me to cancel my pre-order of the game? No. I'm getting the game. I actually got a lot of enjoyment out of this beta and found myself wanting to play it more. It was the best impression left on me in a COD beta in the last few years. Now, I am an enthusiast. I do like COD. I play it a lot, but I'm not like a ride or die person for it. I'll stop playing if I don't like the game. I stopped playing Advanced Warfare because I just didn't like the way that game played. I'll point out issues when I see them like I did in this video. Last thing here, I got a couple of things on my wish list I'd like to see added to the game. First thing, I don't think anyone will disagree with me here. Add the ping system to Vanguard, please, Sledgehammer. I think this should be a staple moving forward in any online multiplayer game, whether it be an FPS game or an adventure game. I would like to see the Cold War health bar, or like the health bar we see in Warzone, added to the game. I do find myself missing that after having that for a year in Cold War. It's nice to be able to see when my health is regenerating, when I have to use a stim shot, etc., etc. Another wish of mine is to see the minimap made into the classic minimap. As it worked in the Vanguard beta, when enemies fire on the map, they do not show up by default. This is not necessarily a concern of mine because there is the radar perk available in the game, which will grant you the classic minimap. People will show when they fire a weapon on it, but just make things how they used to be. Make it a classic minimap, Sledgehammer. It's just a quality update in my eyes. You're trying to push people to use the compass at the top of the map like in Modern Warfare. I've tried to use it actually, but it's just not immersive enough. You can't quickly glance up there and get an idea of your enemy's surroundings like you can with a minimap. If they're trying to get this compass ping system to work, they need to have like high alert style or something more immersive and like less obstructive when you're trying to get data. It just doesn't work the way they're trying to make it work right now. Lastly, the patrol mode is a new mode where it's like a mobile hardpoint that moves around the map. It's a pretty cool mode. However, I wish the patrol point would move faster the more people you have on the point. It feels kind of slow in my opinion when you're actually playing the objective on this mode. Or you can make it the more people that are on the objective, the more points your team scores. So how do you feel about this Vanguard beta? Were you overall happy with it like me, or did you absolutely despise it? Share your thoughts and one thing you liked and or one thing you disliked down below in the comments. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. And if you'd like to help support the channel directly, there are some links down below in the description that you can check out. Peace.